We taught athletes about football through gaming. How did we do it? Well, here's a quick backstory. Last summer, I was introduced to Jen Welter. Who is Jen? Jen is the first female NFL football coach, and she coached linebackers for the Arizona Cardinals. She's also a gold medalist and a former football player. Jen was also the first female featured in EA Madden, the video game, so who better to partner on this than Jen? Jen owns her own company called Grrridiron Girls, and Grrridiron Girls aims to empower women through football, both on and off the football field. She hosts youth football camps specifically for girls flag players all over the country. So last summer, Jen, Grrridiron Girls, XP Camps, and I hosted a camp in Chicago, Illinois for youth flag girls football players, and I'm going to be breaking down the film for you from that camp. Alright, now we're going to start breaking down clips from this camp so we could start showing you how this all works. Now in this camp, we are in the drill portion of the camp right now, and so XP Camps was actually set up as a station at this camp, and so we're in the offensive portion. And what these girls did, I won't break down all of the drills that they did, mainly because that was a lot of Jen's doing, and I don't want to show too much of how Jen runs her camps. If you're interested in how the Grrridiron Girls run their camps, go over to jenwelter.com or check out the Grrridiron Girls. They do a lot of really cool stuff at their camps, but again, I'm just going to be breaking down more specifically XP Camp's role in all of this. So these girls just came from a drill where they were running the route tree, and so they went from running the route tree to the XP Camp station, where then we started breaking down 2 route concepts. And so for these girls, now that they understand how these routes work, we wanted them to start understanding how they work together in these 2 route concepts and how you could start making simple reads with these routes. And you'll see how we do this right now. I'm going to run these clips and then I'll pause it at specific areas to break it down in more depth. This is the third play. We call this a dagger concept. Essentially, Y is going to run a streak, just run straight forward. The outside receiver, you're going to run an in route. So the purpose here is whoever's lined up over Y either has to sync with the streak route or step up to the in route. So let's see what this looks like when we run it through. So this is what they were actually seeing on the screen. So we created a dozen plays beforehand of just simple 2 route concepts so that they could start seeing how it works. Now, the first thing I'll highlight is I called it a dagger concept, and this is more of like a slice because that in route is a bit more shallow than it would be if it was a dagger concept. But this is what the girls were seeing on their screen. Now obviously they first get to see what the routes look like on the field, but this is pretty similar to the experience you would get with a chalkboard or a whiteboard. And so how I think we elevate this experience is by actually being able to run through the play like this, where not only are you seeing the routes on the field, but now you're starting to see some of the timing and the spacing that takes place, especially on a play like this with these in routes. Traditionally, you would tell the players the outside in routes that are going to be running towards the middle of the field just break at 5 yards of depth. But what would happen honestly is these 2 kids would both break at 5 yards of depth and then eventually collide into each other in the middle of the field. But now you could start seeing that there's actually a little bit of variance in their depth so that they don't run into each other. And so I think that's what's really cool about this, as we take it a bit more beyond just the chalkboard and the whiteboard, where now we could actually hit play, and let's say you're Mike Evans on the outside and you're running that dig route. Well, now we could hit play and you could just start seeing again the timing and the spacing. And when we break down the reads here as a quarterback, you could see right here, we don't have a defense on the field, but you could start imagining, okay, I'm just reading this player right here in the curl flat. If it's a cover 3, are they going to be sinking into the seam with Y or stepping up and guarding X? But whichever they do, I'm just going to make the other read. And you'll actually see this come into play when we start breaking down the 7-on-7 portion of this camp. But again, the big thing here is they're starting to see timing, spacing, and if you're trying to understand your responsibility better, you could actually watch a player run it rather than just trying to imagine what it looks like when it's drawn up on a chalkboard. So right there, basically the defender that's going to be right here has to pick, do you want to sync with Y or do you want to step up with X? So quarterbacks, you'll have another high-low read there. Does anyone have any questions on this? So one thing I will highlight is The biggest adjustment we had in this camp was switching it from 11 on 11s to 7 on 7s, because especially when you're talking about girls in football and women in football, it's been predominantly flag football so far, not so much tackle. So a lot of these girls have never seen 5 down linemen or any of those concepts that you would see in 11 on 11s. So that was a bit of adjustment period, and that's what a lot of the questions were revolved around. But now let's jump into the next part of the offensive section. So this is the next play you guys are going to be running. The number 2 wide receiver here in the slot is going to be running a flat, and the outside receiver is going to be running a slant. And so this is just, again, what they're going to be seeing on the TV right now. And so it's just a simple slant flat concept, and we're just showing them like, okay, is this defender going to widen out towards the sideline? If so, the slant will be open. Or is this person going to stay at home? If so, the flat will be open. And again, just trying to get these players to A, see what these routes look like, and B, start thinking about like what are the simple reads that need to be made. So we started really simple with just a lot of these 2 route concepts, and then again we just ran through the play so they could see the timing and the spacing and what their role would look like, and then we just let it run all the way through. And so essentially what we're looking for here is this defender going to slide out with Y? Here, I'll start playing it so you guys can kind of see. So if your coach calls a flat and a slant, this is what it looks like. And right here, this defender essentially has to choose, do they want to slide down to the flat to guard Y, or do they want to sink to guard X? And then quarterbacks, you'll just make the read on that defender. Any questions so far? No. Now we're in the defensive portion of the camp, where we're going to start breaking down zone coverages. And you can already see it on my screen. I think one of the really cool things about teaching defense through Madden is the colorful play arts that the game provides you, where you could see a little bit here. This is a cover 2 zone on my screen right now, and you can see the dark blues where the deep halves are and the light blues where the flat defenders are. It may be a little bit hard to see because it's bright. It's maybe a little bit easier to see on my computer right now, but I'm just gonna run through a couple minutes of this just so you can see how we start breaking down zone coverages during the defensive portion to help these players just, again, better understand where they need to be on the football field. Just look at me, and I'm just gonna point to who you are on the field. Okay, and so also, one thing that we are doing that I wanna highlight, so with the offensive plays, those are going to be the offensive plays that they were going to be running in 7 on 7s. And so the back half of it was now we were showing them the just simple zone coverages and man coverages that they were going to be running in 7 on 7s. So right now what I'm telling these girls is don't feel overwhelmed by all the information I'm giving you right now. When we get to the 7 on 7 portion, if you feel confused about your responsibility, just look over to me in the screen, and I'll just point at the screen and be like, hey, you're in a deep half, it's this deep blue, and remember what we talked about, you have all of the deep area on this half of the field, don't let anyone beat you over the top. You know, it's just helping them understand where to be on the field a little bit better and how their zone works with other zones. You know, you don't want kids that are cheating up too much if they're the deep half defender, right? Or you don't want the defenders underneath to sink too much because you need to understand that they have help over the top. So we were just trying to help them contextualize with all of the colorful play arts that Madden provides us. Hey, this is your area and it's like circled in this nice color, and it'll help you understand it better. So that's just a bit of what we're talking about when we break down these zone coverages. So if you're the cornerback, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just be like, I see you right there, you got this. So this is called cover 3, same thing, 3 high defenders, that's why it's called the cover 3. This defender has from like the numbers to the sideline, this person has from the numbers to the numbers, and then this outside defender has from the numbers to the sideline. This purple zone, your job is to basically help your friend out here who's in the blue zone. So you'll have all of the short passes from the numbers to the sideline, and this person will have all the deep passes from the numbers to the sideline. Again, just want to highlight really quick, I think it's really cool that Madden has these colorful play arts because you could start seeing like curl flat responsibilities to deep third responsibilities a lot more clearly when you have these colorful zones where it's like, okay, the curl flat defender, like just think of it in simple terms. Your role is to help out this deep third with all of the short and intermediate passes that get thrown underneath them. And so now they start understanding how their role, not only how they run their own role, but how it just impacts the bigger picture of what you're trying to accomplish with that specific defense. But this is in a high level what we did at the station section. So now I'm gonna jump into some of the 7 on 7 film so you could see how this was all put when it was put together. XP Camps is looking to come to you this summer. If you're looking to upgrade your camp experience or host a dynamic team event, what you're going to want to do is go down to the link in the description below and fill out the event form that I've linked down there. That event form will save your spot in line. There's only so many camps that we could do this summer, so filling out that event form and telling us what your event is, what the date is, where it's going to be held, and some more details about the event will reserve your spot in line. Once you've filled out that form, an XP Camps representative will reach out to you and help you set up the best solution for your team. We do both in-person and virtual activations, so it'll all just depend on what's best for your camp and your team. But again, if you want to reserve your spot and have XP Camps come to you this summer, fill out the link in the description below. Now, let's jump back into it. All right, now we're going to be in the 7-on-7 portion of this camp. So I'm going to show you how it works, and then I'm going to highlight just a couple of my favorite plays from the 7-on-7 portion. So for this first clip, this is how we called the plays, and this is what I think is really cool. So we had two TVs set up. Zach on the left side of the screen had all of the offensive plays, and then I was running all of the defensive stuff. And so it was the same thing as the station, so it started coming full circle, where all of those two-route concepts that you just learned, that's how we're going to be calling the plays, is Zach would just click a play, they would see the play, and they would see how the play was run, and then they would go out and just mimic what they saw on the screen. And then same thing for the defensive portion. We found who our linebackers and our DBs and our rushers were, and then we just started pointing to areas on the screen. Hey, this colorful zone is you. Hey, that colorful zone is you. And it started just making a little bit more sense for these players, and you'll see as we start fleshing out these clips a little bit more.
Hey, wide receivers, put your hands up. Wide receivers, so I know who I got. All right, two wide receivers right here. Two of you right here. Two of you right here.
The middle linebacker.
One, two. Where's the second one?
The other middle linebacker.
Second one, two. Right here. Stay right here. All right, see the routes you guys are running?
Okay, you'll be one of my linebackers.
You remember what letter you were or no?
Okay, and then everyone else same responsibility.
Y, what letter? Yep. B.
I think.
You were X. Hey, right? You guys know where you're going?
And so that was a pretty cool thing that Zach did, because there was buttons that were over each player's heads. So just to make it simpler, I was like, okay, well, which button are you? Are you X, Y, A, or B? And so once they discovered which button or which player they were going to be, then he would click play. A little bit right here. He would click play on the screen, and so it's like, okay, I'm the B button. I just need to watch on this play what B is doing, and then I need to go out on the field and mimic it myself. And so even if they're not fully understanding the reads and the plays, at least they're going to be in the right spot, because they're seeing what's happening on the screen, and then they're just mimicking it for themselves. And the more that we hammer in, this is the read, or this is why we're doing what we're doing, it'll start making a little bit more sense. But at worst, they at least know where to be on the field. And so this is what it looked like. This is how we called plays for the entire 7-on-7 portion. They would just run over to the screen. Zach would click a play. I would click a play. We would point to all their responsibilities to show them, and then they would go out on the field and recreate it themselves. One really unique thing about the camp before we jump into the plays is that we had girls of all different ages, whether it was 5th grade all the way up through seniors in high school. But having them learn it like this, they all at least knew where to be. Obviously, if you have a high schooler going up against a 5th grader, the high schooler is going to win just because of where they are in their development physically, but at least the player is in the right spot. And so when that 5th grader now goes to face people their own age, they're going to be in the right spot, and it's going to be more of an equal kind of battle physically. And so this is now getting into the play portion, what it looks like when it's all put together.
Do you remember your responsibility from the...
Oh, first thing here is just a quick peek of how easy this is as well. So I noticed right before the first play was snapped that this girl was looking a little bit confused. She was my outside corner in my cover 3. And so you could just see right now why it's really helpful when you do have Madden.
No, well, I wasn't sure which position.
Ah, it's okay. You're the blue zone. Yep. You see like the blue zones at the top of the screen. So your responsibility, just don't let it.
Take a step back. Have a step back.
You just keep thinking with this receiver.
And so she was unsure of her responsibility, and we had the TV set up right on the sideline. So I could just point really quick and be like, you're that dark blue zone in the deep third. Just don't let anyone get behind you or deeper than you on the field. And so technique-wise, obviously there's a lot that we could clean up, but at least she's starting to understand where to be on the football field. And a lot of these players, they're fairly new to football, so teaching it in this way was just an easy way to get them to pick up these concepts really quick. I think the part that we struggled with the most is if you could see the lines on the field, we weren't playing with a traditional football setup, I would say. It was more of like a soccer field setup. So when you say, cover from the numbers to the sideline, well, the field didn't have numbers or, a big sideline painted on it. So we just kind of had to use our imagination in terms of how much range you have there. But again, just a really cool thing to highlight before we jump into these plays. So this was the first play that we were running with the cover 3. And so you could just see we actually had a good rush here. And this girl, she just threw it to her curl route that came out of the backfield. Well, in this case, it was the center because of flag football rules. The center could run out on routes. In traditional football, that'd probably just be a running back leaking out of the backfield. But, I mean, it was a great read by their offense. I mean, she leaked out, and we had that cover 3, so she threw it right in between those hook curls in the middle of the field. So, honestly, a pretty good read by that quarterback. And just, highlighting at least our players, again, are in the right spot where we have our hook curl here, a hook curl here, and then you could see a little bit of her headband. That was our curl flat all the way out there. So at least they're starting to be in the right spots on the field.
Good. Flag.
So that was the first play right there.
Go get your play. Hurry up.
And so this is how it worked. That was the first play. And so they would come over here and we would give them their next play call. Now, for the most part, what I found was really helping these kids was calling the same formation 2, 3, maybe 4 times in a row. I didn't want to overwhelm them and give them cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, and have them try to remember all the different responsibilities. So we were back in the cover 3 here. Now, I messed up a little bit here. I told my rusher to, instead of rushing the quarterback, try to pick up the running back and the centers that were leaking out in between those hook curl zones. And you can see this quarterback makes a great play here. So we're sitting in that cover 3. She has all day to throw and throws a laser in the seam. Now, I believe my outside third, if we back up for a second, I think my outside third ended up getting tripped up a little bit. You can see she fell right there. But still, I mean, that was pretty wide open in the seam. And so, great read by that quarterback. She kind of understood what we were talking about earlier, where it's like that player's going to run a streak in the seam, and you need to make that read on the curl flat of, are you going to throw to that underneath deep out route or that underneath in route, or are you going to throw to that streak in the seam? And she ended up making a great play throwing it in the seam. So after that, we actually just ended up switching into man coverage because I felt like if we gave that quarterback time, she was just going to keep slinging it on us. So now we're in a cover 2 man. And again, if you, it might be a little bit bright on your screen, but it's just, again, we pointed like, okay, we have the 2 deep halves, everyone else underneath man up to the player in front of you. And then we're not having a rusher. It was a little bit weird trying to understand the flag rules. So we had a lot of people manned up, or we had the 2 deep zones. So we didn't have anyone rushing the quarterback. And then this is actually Coach K right here. She was helping me out a ton. Coach K is a varsity high school coach in Chicago, and she's trying to become the first female head coach to win a varsity playoff game in the state of Illinois, which is pretty cool. And so she was helping me out a ton with teaching technique, and I was trying to get them set up on where they would be on the field, and then she helped dial in terms of just the little technique once they were in position to make a play. So let's fast forward here to this next play. And so this is just here, again, helping another player. She was one of our deep halves in our cover 2 man. And again, it's a little bit confusing because we didn't have the hash marks or the numbers to help her contextualize how much space she had on the field. So I'm just pointing to her, that's the sideline. This is the middle of the field. This is how much space you have to cover. And she actually, despite the look on her face, she actually did comprehend it pretty well. And she actually made a good play. I don't think it was on this play, though. So we're here in the cover 2 man. Now, this girl right here is my cornerback that was out in man coverage. And then she was actually in a great position to make the play. This is, again, just where a lot of that smaller technique starts coming into play. She was in position. If she would have just turned around and got a hand up when we started yelling ball, when it was in the air, I think she could have came up with a broken pass, or at least, maybe an interception, but at least breaking up the pass. But again, I think the thing that was just sticking out to a lot of us coaches at the camp was, yeah, she didn't turn around and make a play on the ball, but she was right there in position. And then you could see the deep half right here starts coming into play. She hesitates a little bit at the top, and it was able to get this girl to get a big gain right here. But the deep half and the man defender were both in position in that cover 2 man. And so that was just one thing that us coaches kept highlighting was, even if she didn't turn around and make the play, at least she was in the right position, and we were really excited about that. We could teach more technique on how you play the ball once it's in the air and different things like that, but we were really excited to see that girls of all ages were competing because they were able to know where they needed to be on the football field. And so this is another play out of that cover 2 man. One thing that we noticed right away is this little girl, if you gave her time, she was going to make you pay. And so we had to start sending a rusher after this play. But this was the last play in the cover 2 man. And then again, just want to highlight, we have our defender manned up here. Everything was covered for a good while. They were, I believe, in an Ohio concept where it was the flip of the slice, where the outside receiver was running the streak, and then the inside receiver was running an out route. But you could see we had these players manned up. We had our outside corners manned up. We had this girl manned up right here. Like, everyone was in great position where even though we gave that quarterback time, we were still in a good position to make a play. A lot of these things, again, just come down to age and physicality. This girl was in high school, and I believe this girl was in like 6th grade. And so obviously in terms of development, there was a bit of a mismatch there, but hey, like, she was, again, in the right position to make a play. And that's all we were really excited about. And then this last clip right here is us in a cover 1 man now. So we took one of those high safeties and we actually rushed the quarterback just because we gave that quarterback way too much time, and she was making us pay a lot during the 7-on-7 portion. So again, just to highlight really quick, they're running the play exactly like how we had it. We have these 2 receivers out here. We have those routes mirrored on the opposite side of the field. And then we have the center and the running back. Now, the center and the running back were getting their routes from the coach in real time. So we would call a play for the wide receivers, and then in the huddle, the coach would call the routes for the running back and for the center. So as a defense, we still didn't know 100% what was coming our way. But you could see, again, we have the doubles. We snap it right here. And then we have our rusher coming in. And she's actually on scholarship for flag football for being a rusher and a running back. So once we started sending the heat here, they were actually running a smash concept. So the inside receiver was running that corner route, and the outside receiver was running that dig route, or not that dig route, excuse me, the hitch route. And so we could just see, again, our players are in great position here. This is the corner route, this girl in the pink sneakers or the pink cleats. And this was the girl that was manned up on her. She did a great job of getting her head around. And then we even have the single high safety. They both got their hands on it, but couldn't come up with it. I was a little fired up right there. Let me just back up really quick. But we had them one high against single high man against the smash concept. Honestly, if she had a little bit more time, this corner route would probably have been open. But we dropped that second high safety so that this quarterback was forced to throw it faster. And it ended up paying off. She threw it off her back foot and underthrew it quite a bit. And then we had both of those girls right there in a great position. But we were just excited. Again, the girl that was manned up was in a great spot and got her head around to make a play. And the single high safety was in there as well to make a play, even though they didn't come up with it. I think one of the things that really stood out to us throughout this whole camp was just there was so many girls of different ages, but when we got them all out on the field and we taught them in this manner, they were all in the right position, and we felt like the younger girls that couldn't make the plays against the high schoolers, when they got to their own age group and they were in that position again, we felt pretty confident that they would be able to make the plays against someone their own age. But again, just a lot of really exciting stuff when we saw that all start getting put together and we saw these girls starting to be in the right spot in the 7-on-7s. and that was really a lot of what we were worried about. And so, again, I'll highlight really quickly, if you want an experience like this at your next camp or for your football team, we're taking inquiries right now, and we're starting a waiting list over at xpcamps.com. So just fill out the event link down in the description below. It'll reserve your spot, and then myself or one of the XP Camps representative will reach out to you soon, and we could start setting up and getting this experience going for your team.
XP!